Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Dominic and I'd like to welcome you all to the 9th episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones, a series in which we take a look at some of the characters who feature in the A Song of Ice and Fire novels but are yet to be seen on the hit HBO show. So if you love Game of Thrones and want to know more about the world and its characters outside of the TV show, you've come to the right place. Just to be on the safe side going forward, I'd just like to say that if you don't want any spoilers for the TV show or the books, then you should probably come back later as I may touch upon some sensitive plot points. Now on today's show we'll be looking at none other than Jon Connington, the former head of House Connington and Lord of Griffin's Roost, and also a former hand of the king to the Mad King Rhaegar Targaryen II. Before we get into Jon, however, let's take a brief look at House Connington and their standing within the Seven Kingdoms. Now, House Connington, officially known as House Connington of Griffin's Roost, is a house of landed knights situated in the castle of Griffin's Roost in the Stormlands. Now, being a house of landed knights means that, like lords, they have their own peasants and men-at-arms and may even take sworn swords. However, even though the wealthiest knights may manage more land than the poorest lords, landed knights do not have the power to deliver justice in their land, and in such cases they must consult and appeal to the authority of their liege lord. They are also sworn to fight for the lord who holds dominion over their land. The House Connington coat of arms consists of 2 griffins, combatants, countercharged per pale on red and white, and although their words are yet to be revealed in the books, it is known that their traditional battle cry is "A griffin, a griffin." House Connington is an old house, and during the reign of the Targaryens they were significantly wealthy. They were also fully fledged lords as opposed to their current status of landed knights. However, due to only joining Robert's rebellion after the Battle of the Trident and the death of Prince Rhaegar, House Connington saw their lordship renounced and 9/10 of their land distributed amongst their neighbours whom had shown support for Robert Baratheon earlier in the rebellion. A chief reason for their late allegiance to Robert's cause is down to the man we will be focusing on today, Jon Connington. Jon Connington was born at Griffin's Roost in either 260 or 261 AC to Lord Armand Connington and a wife who is yet to be named. In his youth, Jon served as a squire. This is where he first met Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, whom he squired alongside and eventually for. He would grow to be very close to and very fond of the young dragon prince and would often compete with other young brash lordlings for Rhaegar's favour. He fondly recalls on how he once walked the castle of Griffin's Roost with the prince after Rhaegar's visit to Dorne and expressed his dissatisfaction at Rhaegar's marriage to the princess Elia Martell of Dorne, whom he felt was unworthy of the dragon prince. When Jon's father died, he became the Lord of Griffin's Roost and named his cousin Sir Ronald Connington as Castellan when he left to serve at King's Landing. Now I mention this just to cast a little contextual light on the relationship between Jon and Rhaegar. George R.R. Martin has confirmed that one of his POV characters in the novel A Dance with Dragons is gay, and it's heavily implied that this character is Jon Connington and that he was in fact in love with Prince Rhaegar in his youth. In 281 AC, Jon Connington was present at the famed tourney at Harrenhal where he danced with Ashara Dane. He was also unhorsed by Kingsguard member Sir Barristan Selmy in a later tournament at Storm's End. A turning point in the life of Jon Connington came during Robert's rebellion after King Aerys II dismissed his hand of the king Owen Merryweather, being untrusting of his abilities and even his allegiances. He named Jon Connington to the office in an attempt to match Robert Baratheon with someone young and capable. When Tywin Lannister found out about the appointment, he believed that it had come too soon for Jon, thinking the young lord to be too young, too bold and too eager for glory. Jon, eager to curry favour and impress in his new position, promised Aerys the head of Robert Baratheon and personally led an army into the field. After the royal army were successful in the Battle of Ashford, Jon took up pursuit of Robert from the Tyrell army. His pursuit led him to the town of Stony Sept, where Robert was said to be hiding. However, before Jon's army could find Robert, the rebels arrived at the town under the joint command of Lords Eddard Stark, Jon Arryn and Hoster Tully, and immediately engaged the loyalists. Although the royal army lost the conflict, which would come to be known as the Battle of the Bells, Jon Connington managed to retreat in good order. He also fought back fiercely, personally killing Jon Arryn's nephew and heir Dennis Arryn and wounding Lord Hoster Tully. When looking back on the situation, Jon regrets not burning the entire town of Stony Sept instead of having his men search the houses for Robert Baratheon. It is suggested to him that Tywin Lannister would have done that, thereby killing Robert before the rebel relief army could reach him, but Jon reflects on the fact that he was after glory and wanted to slay Robert himself, and also he did not want to be branded a murderer. Because of his defeat at the Battle of the Bells, King Aerys stripped Jon Connington of his titles and exiled him, passing the rule of Griffin's Roost over to his cousin Sir Ronald Connington. Once he had been made king, Robert Baratheon refused to recall Jon from exile as he had been among Prince Rhaegar Targaryen's closest friends. In his exile, without a clear path or direction, Jon joined the Golden Company, a notorious band of sellswords said to have never broken a contract. He served with the company for 5 years and rose quickly through their ranks to a place of high honour at the side of Miles Toyne, the Captain General of the company at the time. Eventually Eventually, however, Jon and Miles were approached by Ilario Mopatis and Varys. They informed Jon that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen's infant son Aegon had survived the sack of King's Landing during Robert's rebellion. In order to recruit Jon without suspicion, a story of him thieving from the Golden Company was fabricated in order to justify his expulsion, and then news was deliberately spread that Jon had drunk himself to death in the city of Lys. Jon Connington resented the shame inherent in the lie, but Varys assured him that it was necessary, as gallant exiles are long remembered, whereas thieves and drunks are soon forgotten. Once the rumours of his disgrace and death eventually reached Westeros, Jon was able to focus on raising and protecting Rhaegar's alleged son Aegon under the guise of Griff, playing the father role to the boy who would be known as young Griff. The two of them have dyed their hair blue to avoid suspicion. When we meet them in A Dance with Dragons, they have boarded an old ramshackle single-masted pole boat called the Shy Maid, with designs on meeting up with Daenerys Targaryen, anticipating her trajectory to Westeros after she has conquered Slaver's Bay. In order to do this, they plan to intercept her in Volantis, knowing that she will need to pass the Free City whatever route she takes. They are also joined by a fugitive Tyrion Lannister, who was sent to them by Ilario after the murder of his father Tywin and having been accused of the murder of King Joffrey. Although Jon is immediately made aware of Tyrion's true identity, the diminutive Lannister is travelling under the alii Hugo Hill and Yolo. Tyrion weighs up Jon Connington, thinking to himself, he has supped on hate himself this one. It has warmed him in the night for years. He also informs Jon that he is aware of both his and young Griff's true identity. Jon forbids Tyrion from drinking after the dwarf becomes drunk during one of his first nights aboard the ship, and orders him to note down everything he knows about dragons. On their journey down the Rhoyne, they pass through the Sorrows, a stretch of the river that is thick with fog and inhabited by the Stone Men, those infected and driven mad by the disease Greyscale. When the Stone Men attack the boat, Jon rescues Tyrion after he has been knocked in the water, but in doing so he contracts Greyscale. He keeps this secret from everybody, knowing that he'll be ostracised and left to die if it is discovered. Despite learning that Daenerys Targaryen has not in fact left Meereen as anticipated, Jon still decides to continue on to Volon Theris, where the Golden Company are stationed. He reveals to them that the true identity of young Griff is in fact that of the young Prince Aegon Targaryen. However, they have already been made aware by their current Captain General Harry Strickland, who was made privy to the plot. As the Golden Company become disillusioned with waiting for Daenerys to leave Meereen, Aegon Targaryen moves that they should invade Westeros themselves, and the proposal is met with enthusiasm from the sellswords, with even Jon being impressed by the initiative shown by the young prince. With the Greyscale spreading further along his hand, Jon knows that his death will soon be upon him. He reflects back to the Battle of the Bells with great regret, hearing bells every time he closes his eyes, and believes that if he is able to see Aegon on the throne, the bells will finally stop tolling and he can die content in his home of Griffin's Roost. The journey to Westeros is fraught with disaster as the autumn storms make for treacherous travel, and many of the ships end up docking in multiple different locations. Despite this, Jon leads a successful retaking of his ancestral home of Griffin's Roost. After he takes the castle, he is glad that his cousin, to whom he made custodian, is dead, and his son Ronnet is away, as he did not want to have to spill the blood of his kin. He also takes members of Ronnet's family into custody to prevent any attempts at retribution. Jon sends a letter to Prince Doran Martell of Dorne, informing him that his sister Elia's son is in fact alive, hoping to gain Dornish support, which he believes to be essential. He also refuses suggestions to marry Aegon off to another lord's daughter in order to gain support, believing that the lost dragon has to marry his aunt Daenerys. He also doesn't offer himself up as a marriage candidate in an attempt to keep his Greyscale hidden. When Prince Aegon arrives at Griffin's Roost, he and Jon disagree on the appointment of one of Aegon's friends to the position of Kingsguard, believing that the position should be offered to the young sons of powerful lords in order to cement alliances. Jon also informs Aegon of their plans to take Storm's End, the seat of House Baratheon. Aegon agrees but demands to lead the troops himself. Jon hopes to have the Iron Throne believe that the invading force is just an exiled lord attempting to retake his old seat, even going so far as to plan writing a letter of pardon in order to support the ruse. However, news of Jon and Aegon has already come to the small council, with Kevin Lannister saying this of Jon: "If this is indeed Jon Connington, he will be a different man. Older, harder, more seasoned, more dangerous." Things surrounding Jon Connington and the young Aegon Targaryen are some of the most interesting thematically currently playing out in the books. It is such a shame that both characters and this storyline were deemed superfluous to the TV show, but at least we'll get to continue their story come the Winds of Winter. Thank you all so much for watching this 9th episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones. If you enjoyed the video, please do share amongst your friends, and you can hit that like button down below or subscribe to the channel to show your support. It really is much appreciated. Thank you again for watching, and please be sure to check out the other episodes of Spotlight along with my new series in 60 seconds for a much more light-hearted look at the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Until next time, bye.